Hello and welcome everyone back to the NPC Dungeon. I have a bit of a weird story for you all today, but this is D&D, so weird is good, right? Anyway, this week's story is all about a battle royale that I once ran for my group. In fact, this is the same group that include Amaros the Amorous, the Blackguard Paladin Thane, Harold Bigsby, and Luna. I've told lots of stories from this campaign on this channel before, and if you haven't watched them all, or any of them, that's fine. Today's story isn't really canon for that campaign, it was just a fun thing that I wanted to try and it went very well. But if you do want to hear those stories, I have a playlist for this whole campaign on this YouTube channel labeled Campaign 1, as this is the first campaign that I've been pulling stories from on this channel. It'll be in the description and there'll be a card right about now for it. But with that, let's move on. So what happened? Well, I want the basic your players go to sleep and wake up in an arena during a dream trope, and they all around what appeared to be a giant flat disc floating in empty space with various columns set up in a kind of colonnade around the place. They all started out in 4 separate, what looked like little outhouse looking buildings, with barred doors shut in front of them. Try as they might, they just couldn't get them open. That was until the being who had summoned them here rose up into the sky before them all. They looked up and saw a giant spectral / holographic image of a lanky and eccentric looking man who announced himself as Geoff Goldblum, no relation to the actor Jeff Goldblum, by the way. He opened the doors and watched intently as they fought, and fight they did. Amaros sent out his monkey companion ahead of himself. As his shadow, he did put a few levels in Shadow Dancer, again this is in 3.5, did battle with Thane's shadow. He had also taken up a few levels in Shadow Dancer himself. Their shadows were doing battle in a very epic Anakin Obi-Wan style showdown in a world of their own, teleporting and slapping each other. Lemures, Amaros' shadow, who notoriously was unable to land a hit, finally was actually able to clock Thane's shadow right in his shadowy looking face. But meanwhile, Thane zeroed in himself on Amaros. He knew this tricky little bard would be a problem if he didn't do something about him early on, but try as he might, this bard is just too slippery, and I mean that literally. He had a set of leather armor that was enchanted to keep others from grappling him. He also knew how to fly and teleport with a dimension door spell as well, so that definitely helped. But they weren't the only ones there. After Harold Bigsby died, he was replaced by his successor, who loved bombs just as much as he did. By the way, if you want to hear that story, I have an episode that I'll link in the description below and put in a card above, where I tell that story and another one that you might like. But for now, Thane turned around in horror as a blast from nowhere launched him into the little outhouse building that he started in. Geoff Goldblum looked down approvingly and then winced, saying, "That's gotta hurt," in true announcer fashion. Amaros took his chance then to cast his usual acid splash and then leapt away. But Thane had his sights on the other now. However, he was just as crafty as Harold. He had a pair of gauntlets that shot projectiles, a net gun, and about 1,000 potions, and he was holding his own pretty well. But Luna was also doing well. She hid back in her little starting building, casting spells from a distance, and was at this point the only one who hadn't taken any damage yet. Instead, she set her pet Velociraptor, yes, again, she had a pet Velociraptor, out after the others. Amaros almost got his arm bitten off and actually managed to calm it down long enough to temporarily get away. But Luna wasn't the only one hanging back and acting from a distance. Their lovely patron, Geoff Goldblum, hadn't left either. He threw spells at them at the end of every round or so just to see what would happen, and they were all enchantment spells just to mess with them. He casted Hypnotic Pattern at the giant form of the image of actual Jeff Goldblum and told really bad dad jokes when he casted Tasha's hideous laughter on them. Like, I actually had a tab open on my computer with the website full of dad jokes. I rolled for the spell that he would cast, and then my players made saves which determined whether or not they were affected. But I had Geoff Goldblum play it off like he was, for example, attacking Luna because she wasn't doing anything, or attacking Thane because he was just very scary. And there was even a whole round and they were just all paralyzed, so Geoff Goldblum was just kind of like awkwardly looking at them like, oops, before releasing them from their paralysis and saying, "That's my bad. That one's on me, my bad." And when Luna was finally able to stop laughing at the most recent bad dad joke, she had an idea. She reused one of her most recent plans, summoned a monkey, cast Goodberry, cast Fire Seed, and then sent her little monkey bomb into the world. If you haven't seen the episode where I told the story where Luna first invented these bombs, I'll link it in a card above in the description below. I'm linking a lot of stuff today, apparently. Now by this point, Harold's new incarnation had very much scarred the surface of this arena with his bombs, indenting the ground and knocking over columns, but none of them were as powerful as the blast Luna's little primate friend created. Thane held his own, however, now being the first to actually take damage from every single player, but his opponent did not. He was blasted back until he landed on the ground with a hard thud. Thane lumbered over him and towered over him as he downed a flying potion, but Thane yanked him back down by his foot and finished off the job that Luna had started with a quick slash from his sword. The first one had fallen, but Thane wasn't done. He narrowed his gaze in on Luna and rushed after her. Amaros took his chance, sent a few magic missiles Thane's way, but Thane had his target. He shrugged them off and continued forward. But Luna had time. She cast Plant Growth, I believe, turning the entire field into a veritable forest, which she used to get away. Her raptor snuck around, taking little bites into the remaining two. Thane was a little frustrated, but other than that, fine. He had a response. He produced a flame from from his hands and incinerated the grass at his feet, backing up out of the way, cutting Luna off. Almost getting lost in her own maze before having to switch directions and avoid the newly lit fire, she landed right in front of Lane, where he earned his second kill of this combat. Her raptor is still alive, so the player played the raptor for a bit, but it wasn't long until Thane killed it too. This left him and Amaros. The bard climbed up at the top of his outhouse to watch the spectacle, but he couldn't stay there forever. Thane approached with malice in his eyes and lit Amaros' building on fire as well. Amaros jumped off, stuck the landing, and proved to be pretty hard to hit. He had high dex and was dodging Thane's physical attacks as they fought in the middle of this burning forest. Branches fell around them, and fire licked at their heels as they hurled spells back and forth at each other until the sneaky Amaros had an idea. Neither of them would win like this. It was a stalemate, so he held his hand out at Thane's gauntlet. I had the gauntlet make a save that succeeded, and then I had Thane made a save for his arm, which he failed. So he watched as his gauntlet shrunk around his arm. The gauntlet's integrity succeeded, but Thane's arm's integrity did not. But he was still alive and fighting with one arm. He wouldn't give up yet. Amaros had to respect that, but he didn't have to hold back. He did the same thing to Thane's chest plate, and against all odds, the plate succeeded, and again, once more, Thane had failed. Amaros had won, the last one left. Gef Joel Bloom congratulated them and sent them all back to their world, their lives, and all their items restored. And that's all for this week's story. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed telling it. It got a little crazy, and it remains to this day one of my favorites. I will admit, though, my memory is kind of fuzzy on it, so I had to embellish just a little bit, and I hope that helped rather than hurt the story. But the gist is pretty much the same. Anyway, feel free to come back next Friday where I talk about backstories for your characters and tell a story about a backstory for a character that I made a little while back. But until next time, let's learn something.